We sell at 255, put at 2050, and then we buy at 235, put at 1125. Now, alone, you would look and say that's a spread, and that's fine. But you have to pay attention and read the question. And what they're saying is that then they covered them, they got out of them. So really, it's just a buy and a sell. So we sold them at 2050, and then we bought them at 2575, and then we bought at 1125 and sold at 575. So we just have to do the math here. If you sell something for 2050, like think of this conceptually, like, well, yeah, you could fire up the fucking T or whatever it is. But the problem is if you're not using the T and you're not, and they don't resonate with you, what do you just do it for this one? Understand the problem. Let's do that. Let's try to understand what's happening here. Okay. So we sold something for 2050. Doesn't matter whether it's a call or a put, whatever the fuck it is. You sold it at 2050 and then you bought it at 2575. So you sell something for 2050 and you buy it for 2575. You're losing $5, 5.25 times 100. You're losing $525. That's a loss. Okay. Boom. Easy stuff. Now, on the next side, we bought something for 1125. Doesn't matter. Could be widgets, could be cars, could be pencils. Doesn't matter. You bought it 11.25, and then you sold it at 575, right? So what's that there? You sold it at 575. So you bought something for 11.25 and sold it for 5.75. That's a $5.50 loss times 100, $550 loss. 50 loss. So you add them up together, that's 1,075 loss. Now the question becomes, how do I know this, right? So this is easy stuff. This is easy plus minus. But what a lot of the vendors do is they do the whole intrinsic value to fuck with you, okay? I know most of the time the test says you sold it at 2, you sold it at 4, very basic stuff. But what they did here, and all the vendors do it because they're fucking with you and they're trying to teach you two things at one time. They said, oh, you did it intrinsic. This is the most important thing to understand, the buy and sell part. Super easy. You can do a teach again. You can do a fucking T chart if you want. Okay. If you don't, but if you're not using the T chart now and you want to say, I don't want to keep changing my strategy, just know that this is a buy and a sell. It's not about spreads. You got to read the whole question. But let's see what they did. They said the stock went to intrinsic. Boom. Okay. Stock went to intrinsic. This is the okay. So then they said the stock went to 229.50 and then they covered at intrinsic, which is their way of just complicating the question. Now, so 229.50, what's intrinsic? Intrinsic is also known as in the money. In the money is basically how much, if you didn't have premium, what the difference between market value and strike price is when it's exercisable, not out of the money, which is not exercisable. So in the money or intrinsic is the amount below the put strike, or if it's a call, amount above the put strike. So here's the thing. So we got under the 255, we're $25.75 below. So that's this 25.75. And that's where we covered it. And in the 235, it's what's 5.75 below. So that's 5.75. So that's what they're doing. They're just trying to screw with you a little bit instead of actually giving you the numbers like the test does. Okay. The test tells you what price you covered it at. 99% of the time they say you sold it at 2, you bought it at 4, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to do the whole intrinsic thing. They might, very rarely. Most of the time they show the numbers. So this is just vendors, all the STC, Achievable, Kaplan, Notman, they all do this crap. And then Past Perfect just adds in like a lot of other stuff. They go, the stock went here and then it moved, but we don't care. So 229 went to 225.50, went to 229.50. We covered it at the intrinsic, which is 25.75, and then we just do our math. It's so simple. And again, like I said, you want to use a T and you've been using the T, stick with it. I don't give a fuck. So all this is a buy and a sell. It could be pencils. You sold a pencil at 2050, you bought it at 25.75, you have 5.25. For the most part, they'll do better numbers, and they're not going to make easier numbers, but they won't be this, they usually won't be this big. And again, the reason you get it wrong too is because you get the intrinsic part wrong, which they're going to do as a separate question. They most likely won't do it unless you get a really hard question. So again, go back to this. We got it intrinsic, sold it at 2050, bought it at 25.75. That's a loss because you sold it for less than you bought it for. And then on the buy and the put, you bought it and then sold it for less than you bought it for. Okay, so here's another one, which is a buy and a sell. Okay, so we're just going to do this. So let's write them down. It looks like it's a spread or a straddle, but let's say it's not because once you see the word repurchase, cover, close out, it's different. So we sold 5, October 245 calls at 3. buy, and then we sold 5 October 235 puts at 2. And then that's fine. And that is what it is. And then he's like, oh, that's a short straddle, short strangle, whatever you want to call it, or a combination. So we look at this and we go, okay, I sold the 245 call, I sold the 235 put, and I go, I sold it for 5. But then they add in that we bought them back. So I just do this. You sold these for 3, and then what do we buy them back for? We bought them back for 4, right? 4. So we really lost 1 point. And then over here, we sold these for 2, right? We sold these for 2, and then we bought them back. They expired worthless. We bought them back for 0. So that's really plus 2 because we made money because we sold it for 2 and it expires worthless. So that means we have a plus 1, right? So it's 100 shares really because it's times 100. And then we did it 5 times. So we're going to do times 5. And there's $500. It's a $500 gain. And there's your answer. So it does work. So really, again, make sure we got this. I sold the 245 call for 3, and then we bought it back for 4. Sold it for 3. This could be anything. Again, this could be pencils or widgets. So we lost a point, which is really $100. I'll even clear that up. Make that $100 just so it looks better. Lost 100. Then we sold the 235 put at 2. That's 200. Bought it back for 0 because it expired. There's 200 plus that plus 100 times 5. The other way to do this, I'll show you another way. Instead of doing it little by little, you do this. We sold 5 of these for 3 and 5 of these for 2. So that's 1,500. You know, remember $3 is 300. So sold 5 for 300. That's 1,500. And then 5 for 200. That's 1,000. So we brought in $2,500. And now we bought them back. Well, we bought the other one back for 4. 5 times 4 is 2,000. The other one expired worthless. It cost nothing. So that cost us $2,000. So we make 500 profit. Many ways to do this.